The truth is out there. Knowledge is power. This is the Prepper Podcast Radio Network.
Are you sick and tired of having your First Amendment harassed or censored on Facebook? Use no more, as we now have a new alternative to Facebook. It's called Awareness Act. Awareness Act is a social network designed for patriots, to be used by patriots, and is ran by patriots. Stand up and help in the fight to protect your constitutional rights. Patriots can create pages, blogs, videos, documents, articles, and so much more. We even have a unique news feed system that allows you to share, read, or connect with any patriot on Awareness Act. We are a dedicated tool for patriots to use against the tyranny our Constitution is facing. So if you're tired of having your rights infringed upon, come check us out at www.awarenessact.com. Again, that is www.awarenessact.com, the social network for patriots, not potatoes.
Whether you take me for the fool, I know that I can be. Whether you see me eye to eye.
Are you storing food? Many preppers are storing food for months and years, but only have enough fuel stored for days or weeks. Stretch your fuel storage by harnessing the power of the sun with a sun oven. Food can be baked, boiled, or steamed at temperatures of 360 to 400 degrees Fahrenheit with the power of the sun. Depending on where you are located, you can use the sun for 50 to 80% of your cooking, allowing you to preserve your fuel storage for rainy days. Sun-baked foods stay moister and have less shrinkage and don't burn. Sun-baked roasts are tastier and more succulent, and sun-baked bread has unparalleled taste and texture. Water can be heated in the sun oven for purification or personal hygiene. For the past 25 years, sun ovens have been proudly made in the U.S. They are durable, have a long life, and come with a 100% satisfaction guarantee. For a discount coupon, email podcast@sunoven.com. That's podcast@sunoven.com.
Have you ever wanted to generate your own supply of electrical power, even save money on your electric bill? If so, this is going to be the most important message you will ever hear. Solar power generators are now available. These emergency backup systems provide life-saving electrical power when you need it most. Unlike gas generators, a solar generator runs quietly, emits no fumes, and produces electricity from the sun. It's like having an electric power plant running quietly in your own home. Run sump pumps, shortwave radios, computers, and even keep your food from spoiling. Whether it's hurricanes, ice storms, brownouts, or blackouts, you'll never suffer through painful power outages again. And here's the best news, a remarkable fall truckload sale going on right now that gets you $1,700 in bonuses when you buy a solar generator. To find out why solar generators are the best generators and get $1,700 for doing so, go to falltruckloadsale.com. That's falltruckloadsale.com. Generate your own supply of electricity. Go to falltruckloadsale.com. That's falltruckloadsale.com.
This is KPRN-DB, broadcasting worldwide from Southeast Oklahoma, USA, to parts unknown.
Hey everybody, welcome to Survival and Beyond, where we explore what it means to survive, how to survive in this mutually agreed upon hallucination. And I am your host, Ed Corcoran, here once again this week on Natural News Radio, as well as the Prepper Podcast Radio Network. And I hope everybody got through the big storm okay, the storm of the century, the monster, the superstorm, the hurricane, what's her name? Yeah, that big mess. And I don't say that I with any disrespect to any of the folks in New Jersey and any of the poor people whose homes were damaged or lost or whose property was damaged. My heart goes out to you, anybody who was affected by the hurricane. But the reason why I come at it with such a glib kind of approach is this whole thing just seemed like it was really hyped up by the media. Just like a little too much, you know. And I'll tell you how I came upon that realization was, you know, a lot of you folks know I live in New Hampshire in the Free State. And days before the storm even came close to shore, there are people, you know, I've had people asking me, oh, hey, you ready for the big storm? And I'd be like, what are you talking about? You know, it's like I was aware of the hurricane. I was aware of Sandy. And, but, you know, hey, we're in New Hampshire, you know, what is the big deal? Oh, we might lose our electricity. Again, so what? You know, we lose our electricity up here several times a year. It's not an unusual event. It's something that most of us are prepared for, you know. And it's ironic because I oftentimes say that people underestimate what it means to go without electricity for a long period of time. And by that, I mean if the grid crashes and it's going to be months or years before electricity is restored to America, then, yeah, it's going to be a little bit more than just breaking out the candles and, you know, living by candlelight and starting a fire, whatever. It's going to be arduous, and it's going to be it's not going to be a pleasant thing to deal with if you're not prepared for it. And I actually had an article on the website that discussed the whole thing about cap and trade and what would happen in America if suddenly we all had to make the decision between buying food and paying for energy, paying for electricity and heat and all that. And if that's swept across the country, in cases like if cap and trade is actually passed and the energy costs, as Obama predicted, make energy costs will necessarily skyrocket, as he said. And you know, people are having a hard enough time as it is with their utilities and keeping their homes warm in the wintertime and paying for, you know, heat and electricity and all that. And so it could really come down to that. And, of course, you know, it's a symbiotic system. So when energy prices go up, when fuel prices go up, food prices go up. And so you have just an increase, you know, a constant increase. And the cost of food is increasing already. But anyway, I've talked about this before, so I'm not going to belabor the point. But that, you know, that's one thing. You know, like, yeah, I want to make sure that people get the message that a long-term power outage, especially if your home isn't equipped to deal with it, is going to be a nightmare for you, because you're not going to be able to cook, you're not going to be able to heat your water, to sanitize your water, you're not going to be able to maintain optimal hygiene, and disease is one of the killers. Dead-on killers in a collapse situation, in a grid crash situation, in a situation where you're thrust into an existence that you are not prepared for, and your home is not prepared for it. I mean, how many people have wood stoves or fireplaces in their homes these days? What about people who live in apartments? You know, where are you going to cook? You're going to have to cook outdoors. Can you do that? You can't do that if you live in an apartment. You can't have a fire. You can't do anything, or you know, in other modern homes as well that just aren't equipped for that kind of thing. So that is something to be concerned about. But losing your power for a couple of days, you know, it's kind of a cakewalk. And folks out here ought to be. Well, there's one thing that I have to mention is that do not make the mistake, as I did, that people who live in rural areas are self-sufficient, and that they're preppers, and that they're hip, and they know what's going on, and they're awake, and they're stocked up, and they're trained. And don't make that mistake, because it's not the case. You know, a lot of people move out to the country, so to speak, because they want to live out in the country, but they've got the job in the city, and they commute, and, you know, I mean, I see lots of Mercedes and BMWs up here, and those folks aren't are probably not storing food and water, and yet they live out here because they like the clean mountain air, I guess. So you can't make that mistake. But still, by and large, most of the folks who live where I live in Podunk Central are pretty hip, and they are prepared by and large. But a lot of them were losing their freaking cool about the hurricane, and people ask me, "Oh, you ready for the big storm?" And I'm like, "I guess, yeah." It's like I'm just as prepared as I always am. I'm not going to go into this last minute frenzy of running out to the store and to the supermarket and buying up all the staples and everything. I've got all that stuff. But on the same token, of course, I realized maybe I should. I think it was Monday night. I thought maybe I ought to go to the supermarket and get some eggs and some stuff. I didn't really need it, but I just thought, hey, I might as well. And also, I didn't think that there was going to be a huge run on the supermarket. I didn't think I was going to go there and find empty shelves. And I did not. There wasn't a huge run on the supermarket, but the shelves were full. There was no sign of chaos or anything like that. So that was great. And then this kid who works there says, "Oh, well, sir, we're going to be closing in a few minutes." And this was like an hour before their usual closing time. And I was like, "Well, why? What for? You closing early now?" "Oh, because of the storm." "Because of what storm?" "It was raining. That's all it was doing. It was raining, and not even that hard." And, it's like, "Oh, there's a big storm coming," and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, I know about the hurricane. I heard all about it, but it's not even raining. It's not even, there's no wind, And so anyway, they're making announcements over there. Hey, shoppers," however he addressed the store, I guess. And I was like probably the only person in there. I don't know. I didn't see anybody else. And saying, "We'll be closing in the next 5 minutes, and we'll be open tomorrow morning for your convenience. As if the power doesn't go out, and if the world doesn't end, and whatever." Okay. So yeah, people taking it way too seriously and getting too scared about it, especially where we are. So, so I'm wondering why these people are acting this way. And then it wasn't until later that it dawned on me that I realized, oh, they've been watching television. That's why. Because I spoke to some other friends and yeah, they said, yeah, they're really hyping it up on TV. And so I went online and checked out some of the news reports, and I was like, oh my God, it's like, it's a national disaster. It's going to be declared a state of emergency. And it was just, and again, that's not to say the storm didn't have any victims. And I know out in the Midwest, I got some friends and listeners who've been telling me that it's snowing out there and it's coming down. I heard forecasts of by the time you hear this, it'll be all over. But, they're still hyping the storm. I mean, even still, this is late Tuesday night, and that I'm recording this right now, and they're still hyping the storm. It's like, oh, we're tracking the storm. And it's like, well, all right, it's snowing in Ohio. And, it's just, I don't know. And then there was all the talk about the HAARP array in regards to the storm, that the HAARP array was actually drawing the hurricane to the East Coast. And the HAARP array was something that I used to be all over back in the day. Well, about a year and a half or 2 years ago. And it's something that I kind of let fall by the wayside, for lack of a better expression. You just get wrapped up. There's so many things out there. There's just so much stuff that you cannot be, totally on point with everything 24/7 all the time. And so I kind of let the HAARP array kind of drift to the back of my consciousness. Still aware of it. Still know it's out there, but I haven't heard anything about it really. And that's the other thing too. I mean, if you don't hear about it too much, then it tends to, out of sight, out of mind. And then when the hurricane started approaching, I started getting all of these emails and reports and seeing reports about the HAARP array, and I wasn't even aware that and for those of you who don't know, HAARP array, HAARP, that stands for High Altitude Auroral Research Project, or high altitude. I've heard a couple different definitions, or the acronym, whatever that is, and what they are, they're just microwave emitters that heat up the ionosphere, and it's postulated that this array can be used to control the weather, among other things. And of course, the Air Force, it's an Air Force installation, the one in Alaska. Then that one, the Air Force claims, it's just a harmless research project. We're investigating different. They're using it for communications. That's the official story. The official story is that they're doing research into improving long distance communications and whatnot. But in the patents for the HAARP emitters, the guy who invented these things, in his patents, it says that it's meant for controlling the weather, for affecting weather patterns. So, the Air Force, of course, they're going to say, well, that's just a bunch of conspiracy theory hooey. But, all you have to do is look at the patents, and it says right there that one of the things, there's a description of what the emitter does and all the science, the scientific, description and whatever you call it. And that's basically what it spells out, is that it's that the array is being used to manipulate the weather or to affect the weather. So anyway, apparently there's a HAARP array on the East Coast, and I wasn't aware of it. I didn't have time to look into it completely, and I might come back after the break and have something more to say about it. But apparently there is a HAARP array on the East Coast. I know there's more than one HAARP array. I know the one in Alaska wasn't the only one, but there's one on the East Coast, I guess. If anybody knows any more about that, then, I'd be happy to hear about it. And as always, I'm happy to hear from my listeners in any regard. You can get in touch with me either through the website. The best way to get in touch with me is just to email me at ed@survivalandbeyond.net. Other than that, you can go on the website, survivalandbeyond.net, and use the contact form. There's a contact link at the top of the page in the navigation bar. I believe it's all the way to the right, and click on that. You can send me a message that way as well. And I'd love to hear from the listeners. And in fact, later on in the show, I'm going to be reading some listener mail, as a matter of fact. I get emails from my listeners all the time. Well, I wouldn't say I'm like inundated, but, it's great to hear from my listeners and the readers of the website, and I do get consistent email every now and then. It's starting to pick up now. I'm starting to get more feedback from you guys, and I really love it. It inspires me. It really does. It makes me feel energized, because sometimes when you're doing a show like this, it can feel like you're talking to yourself. And so it's really gratifying when you guys, give me a holler and say, hey, cool show, or you like the show. If you got any suggestions, if you have any requests, if there's something you want to hear more about, or something that a guest that you'd like to see on the show, just let me know. And I really appreciate it. It really makes my day when I get some communication, get some feedback from the listeners. So thanks for that, guys. And thanks for listening. Even for the silent majority out there. I know a lot of people. I'm like that myself. I'm a dead lurker. That's why I don't go on forums. I believe it or not, I'm not. I think I've been on the survival forums that are out there a handful of times, because I'll just lurk and I won't say anything. I'll read stuff, and because usually when you go on forums, if somebody asks a question, somebody else has already answered it, or it's not like immediate form of communication, and so I'm not going to pipe up unless somebody says something stupid, or something that's just blatantly wrong. And so I have a tendency to just kind of like lurk around and read some of the posts, but I'm really super ass busy. I'm a one man operation here pretty much. I have some help from my assistant Michelle, and she makes contacts and things like that for me. But other than that, I wear like all the hats, and so I'm really busy doing the research. And boy, I really work the research when it comes to like topical events and news items that come across my field of vision. And that's another thing too that you listeners are great for. is giving me tips and saying, hey, have you heard about this? And, sending me articles and things like that and news items that I may or may not be aware of. And oftentimes it is something that that piques my interest that I hadn't heard of before. And I spent a lot of time today, maybe too much time today, looking into this whole thing about Mayor Bloomberg and again, getting back on track with the whole hurricane story, the hurricane situation, the superstorm. I got this thing in my email about Mayor Bloomberg threatening that looters will be taken to internment camps. And he also mentioned that if you ride the elevator, do not ride the elevator. If you ride the elevator, then and you get stuck, we'll get you out, but then we'll take you to an internment camp. Right now, this seems just too good to be true. And by that I mean it's like, yes, a public figure coming out and admitting that there are internment camps. And there are internment camps, folks. There are FEMA camps. I know that there's a contingency. Is it contingent or contingency? I don't know. But I know there's a certain number among you out there who believe that the FEMA camp thing is all a bunch of conspiracy theory nonsense. Well, it's not. They are out there. I mean, geez, the National Guard was looking for was making posts on putting up posts on monster.com looking for internment specialists, internment and detention specialists. And there's just been too many sightings and video of these installations to be denied. And actually, yes, the government has admitted that the Department of Homeland Security has admitted that these facilities do indeed exist. Of course, their official story is also that they exist for our benefit in a time of disaster and for shelters and whatnot. Well, I don't know about you, but I don't recall any shelters, any voluntary housing or facilities, accommodations. That's the word I'm looking for. That have double chain link fence with barbed wire pointing inward. That looks like an installation where you want people to stay there, And also just because of my contacts, the other reason why I say this with such assertion that they do exist and they are indeed there for what we think they're there for, is for the internment of American citizens, right? Now, and let's not forget the NDAA as well. It's like they have a law now that Americans can be incarcerated for any reason with no due process, with no chance of a jury trial or a trial at all, no contact with legal counsel, and all for the suspicion of being a terrorist. So we have that going for us. Right, and where do you think that they're going to put all of these Americans that are suddenly going to be incarcerated with no due process, no chance for a trial, indefinitely? Where do you think they're going to put them? You think they're going to shove everybody in Gitmo? Of course not. There's going to be a roundup, I believe. I believe it has all the earmarkings of it, and also that in combination with folks that I'm in contact with through the course of my work, because of the nature of the stuff that I do and the things that I talk about, I come in contact with people who know things. And one of them I can share with you is a friend of mine was at a survival and preparedness, one of the survival and preparedness events or one of those expos, and he was talking to an employee of FEMA. Now, this is a friend of mine. Like, he's got no reason to make this up. He's got no reason, he knows all about me. He's got no reason to try to convince me of anything. And he had a conversation with a FEMA employee who told him that at a certain point there will be buses, and said, whatever you do, do not get on the bus. And he didn't know that he was a FEMA employee. My friend didn't know that he was an employee of FEMA, I don't know, I guess middle management or something like that. I'm not sure exactly what his title was or what his duties were or whatever, what his job was. But, yeah, and of course my friend was like, how do you know this? And he told him that he worked for FEMA, showed him his credentials, the whole 9 yards, his ID and all that. So, yeah, they're out there. They're out there and they're waiting. They're waiting for the time for the great roundup. I think first, before any of that happens, though, I think first they're going to try to corral us in with Agenda 21 protocols and the whole Rural Council Act. Getting people out of the wilderness areas, out of the rural areas, herding them into the cities in these pre-designated, habitation zones or population centers or whatever it is that they call it. Agenda 21, look that up as well. You can go and see that for sure at the UN website. And you just, I think it's UN, I think you use both, either UN.com or UnitedNations.com. You can look up Agenda 21 for yourself and see all of the actionable plans that they have, all the courses of the plans of action that they're planning. So there we go. There's the whole roundup. Oh, wait a minute. No, here I go off on a tangent again. Well, getting back to the Bloomberg thing. Once I went off on my tangent about FEMA camps. So yeah, I get this article, and Bloomberg is warning New Yorkers that looters will be sent to internment camps. He didn't say arrested. He didn't say incarcerated. He didn't say detained. He didn't say shoved in a free speech zone. He said internment camps. Those are trigger words. Those are the key words right there that you're looking for. And the thing is, I cannot figure out if this report is legit. And this is very unusual. I mean, usually, when I do a little bit more digging and I go to a few more websites, I realize, okay, this isn't credible, or it's not. It turns out to be a hoax, or it turns out to be misrepresentation or whatnot. So I'm digging around, and the first thing that comes up, and I'm going on forums too to see what other people are saying about it, and the first thing that comes up is like, oh, well, this is on the Weekly World News website, and so of course that automatically disqualifies the credibility of it in most people's eyes right away. It's a Weekly World News, and you think of the Bat Boy and the supermarket tabloid. And so I'm like, okay, hang on a second. Just because it's on their website, I'm sure that they aggregate articles and news pieces, or fluff pieces, entertainment pieces. They aggregate their content from somewhere, from probably various other sources. And so just because it's on Weekly World News does not mean that they didn't get it from a credible source. So I kept on digging. It was mentioned on Forbes.com. The article itself wasn't not on Forbes' website, but it was referenced in an article. They made reference to Bloomberg threatening looters with being sent to internment camps. And so there's a credible website, as far as I know. I mean, nothing in the mainstream media is really credible. CNN has been it's been uncovered twice recently that they've either made up the news, just blatantly made it up, all that Syria Danny baloney, or that they were paid to actually suppress news coming out of Bahrain. But and also they've been doing it for years. Since the Gulf War, anyway. I know that's the earliest evidence that I've seen of them making up the news, and they did that thing. They did all their reporting from the Gulf War. Well, probably shouldn't say all their reporting, I don't know, but they did some of their major reporting from a soundstage. They weren't even anywhere near. They weren't anywhere near the Gulf. They weren't in Saudi Arabia, as they claim. They're somewhere in California. But anyway, not that I automatically find, or determine that anything in the mainstream media is legit, but at least it's not the Weekly World News. It's something a little more credible. And I found that article posted on a lot of other websites. Well, articles, this is the way things go. When it comes to content generation for a website, when you aggregate, when you pull stories from other sources and everything, stuff gets passed around, and the next thing you know, it's impossible to determine where the original source was, and that's where I ended up. That was the brick wall I ended up hitting. I couldn't find out where this story came from originally. So, one of those rare times that my judgment is up in the air. Could he have said it? He could have said that. He could have mentioned internment camps and threatened to send people there who were looting. It could have originated from the Onion, for all I know. But I thought that was interesting. And again, if you folks, if anybody out there has any intel on the whole Bloomberg thing, I'd like to know about it. And we're going to have to take a quick break right now. I just happened to notice before I go off on another tangent, we have to take a quick break. Give us some sponsor love. They're the folks that keep the show going. Without them, there is no show. So I do hope you go and patronize our fine sponsors, and we'll be right back. Thank you.
No one knows what the future holds, whether an unexpected natural disaster or a catastrophe of a more personal nature. You never know when you're going to need to call upon your survival skills and supplies. In order to be fully prepared, we at Dan's Depot believe you need two things in order to get through these uncertain times without fear: proven gear and top-notch survival training. DansDepot.com is not just another storefront selling survival gear. Our staff has been studying, practicing, and teaching survival skills for over 4 decades. We use and abuse all the gear we sell. So, when we recommend survival products, you can be assured that it's the highest quality gear available at the best price. But having the best gear means nothing if you don't know how to use it. That's why we have on-site video instructions to help you choose survival products for any situation. Each week, we produce new training videos and articles that inform, challenge, and better prepare you in all areas of survival, first aid, and self-reliance. Come visit us at dansdepot.com and let our team of survival experts help you get prepared with the knowledge and equipment you need to face these uncertain times with confidence. That's DANSDEPOT.com.
Silver has been in use as an effective antimicrobial for thousands of years, and this old technology is still in use today. In 2001, a patent was approved for a new medical silver application, nanocatalytic silver hydrosols. Unlike conventional colloidal silver products, some of the advantages of nano-silver include up to 300% greater bioavailability, proven non-toxicity in over 25 university and FDA-approved laboratory studies, and extreme stability with a shelf life of over 10 years guarantee. With just one product, you can replace all the antibiotics, wound and burn dressings, and water purification products in your medical bug-out bag. These products have been patented for use against some of the deadliest pathogens known, many that are resistant to traditional antibiotics, yet are safe and gentle enough for treating a baby's diaper rash. To learn more about this medical silver breakthrough and see the published scientific studies, visit www.lifesilver.com. All orders ship within 24 hours with deep discounts and free shipping for case orders. That's www.lifesilver.com. Survival is not about the end of the world. It's not about a hypothetical plane crash or the latest violent storm. Survival is about the satisfaction of knowing you can take care of yourself and your family in any situation, anytime, anywhere. CampingSurvival.com was started in 1956. No, not the .com part, the survival part. CampingSurvival.com has over 17,000 urban, wilderness, and preparedness items. Supreme customer service, very low shipping, and no games. We look around to make sure we have the lowest prices. And CampingSurvival.com is 100% USMC veteran-owned. Don't base your survival on the latest spring-up on the internet company. Do business with an authority on survival. CampingSurvival.com. Confidence born on preparation.
Okay, and we're back here on Survival and Beyond. And just a reminder, you can get 5% off of all of your purchases at campingsurvival.com. All you have to do is really simple. Just enter the coupon code SBRadio. That's S as in survival, B as in beyond, and the word radio, all one word, SB Radio. And go to campingsurvival.com and get your 5% off your entire purchase today. What was I going to do first? Was I going to do listener mail first? I think we'll do listener mail first because I got some other things that crossed my mind that I wanted to get to, and I want to read some of our listener mail first because it's really cool. It's really, really cool to get listener mail. Dag nabbit. The death knell in radio, dead air. There's a thing about humans and human speech, about our psychology, is that humans hate silences, or they hate breaks in communication. And so that's why we're always compelled to fill the gaps with and and all those other things that we do. And I've got my own idiosyncratic things as well, which I was going to get to. That was actually addressed in one of these emails. And okay, here it is. This was sent to me via private message on Awareness Act. And if you folks haven't checked out Awareness Act yet, I just want to take a moment here to get you hip to Awareness Act. It's Facebook for Patriots, not potatoes. I don't know if that's even their official tagline, but that's what I've been saying since I first mentioned it on the show, and I'm sticking with it. Facebook for Patriots, it's a social network that is very, very much like Facebook in order to be, familiar to most of the users. It's like the original Facebook. It's before the timeline and before any of that crap started happening. But it's great. It's on a private, secure server, so you don't have to worry about anybody data mining you or listening, reading what you're writing and taking notes and putting you on a list. You don't have to worry about that stuff. And it's all patriots and freedom and liberty-minded folks. And it's a really great place to meet new people and to talk about the things that are important and spread news and information. And that's at awarenessact.com. And they're making improvements all the time. I know Marshall Nelson, their tech guy, and this guy's just a genius, a young fella, actually, a kid. I think he's in his early 20s, and he's really all over this stuff. So, yeah, Awareness Act is cool, and I have some listeners on Awareness Act and who send me messages and converse with me on a regular basis. And this one is from Carla, and I wanted to read this because it's really this is an example of what I mean. Well, let me read the email. And she said, "Dear Ed, I'm so glad I discovered your show through stumbling upon natural news. Subject matter and guests are timely and significant. I have learned so much in a condensed amount of time. So thanks." Okay, now I want to suggest one thing. Maybe it's a pet peeve of mine, so take it for what it's worth to you. But you say and whatever too much. For me, it's a habit that detracts from your informational monologues from what you are trying to relay. Sorry, but I tell my husband the same thing when he says, "You know what I mean? Listening to the fluoride piece right now. So, yeah, that's incredibly valid. That is absolutely true. I do say too much and whatever, and also whatnot. That is one of my I don't even like that word. I don't even like whatnot, but I find myself saying it all the time. And using in my speech as an or an replacement is something that I used to be aware of whenever I did public speaking, and I've done a lot of public speaking in the past, and I'm very comfortable with it. I'm actually more comfortable speaking in front of a room full of people because I can see you. Basically, is what it breaks down to. Is I can feed off the energy in the room. I can see your reactions. I can tell if you're really listening and if you're paying attention, or if you're bored, and so I can gauge my pace and my rhythm and my tempo and everything. And anyway, wander off on tangents, and I do that when I'm in front of a room full of people too, so that never changes. But I was always conscious of not using the words and not falling into a habit of doing that, because I know I hate it when other people do it. You hear somebody else speak, and every third beat is, the next thing you know, all you hear is blah, 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 and all you hear is, and the rest of it you don't pay any attention to. And it's one of those things, as I was getting to earlier, about the way the brain works and how we are hardwired in our communication, where a silence, even the briefest silence, is almost unbearable. Well, maybe not unbearable, but you want to fill that space. And when I'm speaking, I want to fill that space, and I say and on. I realize that, and that's probably something I'm always going to do. I've not a single year of network broadcasting school, ladies and gentlemen, as big a surprise as that might be. Or my old joke used to be, that's what 5 years of broadcasting school will get you. Whenever I would stumble and trip when I was doing my live show. Doing a live show is a completely different animal. But yeah. So thank you, Carla. And I did respond to Carla, and I said pretty much the same thing that I just said to you all right now. But I just thought it was really amusing making that observation about my speech, and I want to use that as an example. Like, hey, it doesn't all have to be. I mean, she said a lot of nice things about me, and that was swell. I really liked that. And then she also had a critique or a suggestion or what have you. And it doesn't have to be about my speech patterns. It doesn't have to be about my beats and rhythm and the way I talk. But it could be about anything. So don't be afraid if you have anything, to point out to me, because I appreciate constructive criticism. If you send me an email saying you're a jerk and you sound like an idiot, then I'm probably going to delete you. No, delete you. But I probably won't respond too well to just something that's mean-spirited. But, oh, yeah, and by the way, before I forget, talking about that Bloomberg article, this reminded me of it, too. Another source where this article was found was on Yahoo News, and then they hastily took it down. And then I came across a link to where you can still get to the article, and that link was disabled. And so it makes me wonder, and this is why I said, if you send me a nasty email, you'll get deleted. Did they delete this? Did Yahoo delete this because it was untrue, or is Yahoo trying to shove it down the memory hole? Who knows? But anyway, moving on to listener mail. I got another really nice email from another listener, and if I can just find it here. Okay. And this is from Shelley, and she said, just want to say thank you for the radio show on Natural News. I really enjoy it. It's like hearing my thoughts coming out of someone else's voice. I love when you ramble on. Thanks, Shelley, because there ain't nothing much I can do about that. Don't ever feel that it's not valuable info. Perhaps we will get to use our survival skills next week with the media hype storm. See, I'm not the only one who thinks that this is a lot of hype. I just wonder what amendment is being taken away while we consume ourselves with the storm. And that's valid, too. I think about this stuff all the time, and it's not because I'm paranoid, Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean that there isn't a global banking elite that wants you dead. It's not paranoia. It's just, every time we're distracted by some big news item, Barry slips some nefarious draconian executive order through, Hey, well, we're celebrating New Year. Hey, let's make you all prisoners now. Let's pass the NDAA. During the Wiener scandal, and I'm very proud of myself that I did not touch that story with a 10-foot pole. No pun intended. I didn't mean anything by that. I did not go anywhere near that story when it was on. I did not talk about it on the show. I didn't, because it's tomfoolery. That's just ridiculous. That's just crazy talk. It is. It's like a circus, and I don't even want to talk about there's the blatant, pantomime and theater and the puppet show that's going on. Although, it's all a puppet show. It's just a matter of degrees of ridiculousness. But anyway, getting back, see, I can even go off onto a tangent in the middle of a freaking email. Well, Shelley went on to say that, she's not fully prepared. She's declares it a disaster, actually. And she says there's a lot that I have to do and learn. So keep teaching us that have not gotten off our butts. We need to be pushed. And I thought, that's really an important thing to get out there. What Shelley's telling me, I mean, she's admitting that she doesn't have her preps together and everything, and that folks really need to be pushed. Really, I know lots of folks who, they're involved in the prepper, the whole prepper deal and the survivalist thing and everything like that, but still they drag their feet and they don't get their program in motion, and I completely identify with that, and I'll tell you why, because there are things that I slack on myself, again with this big storm coming up. I wasn't expecting anything. I thought, well, maybe at the least we might lose power. A tree might come down. I mean, up here in the mountain, like I've said before, we routinely, not frequently, but routinely have power outages, and some of them can last a day or 2 days. And when that happens, the biggest inconvenience for me is that the power, the pump, the well pump it runs on electricity, and it doesn't work when the power's off, obviously. And but for me, it's not a really huge concern about water and water storage. I do not have a whole lot of water storage. I keep enough water storage for a couple of weeks, and that's about, or a little more than 2 weeks, because I have this immaculately pure, constantly roaring stream, mountain stream, right? I mean, I could walk there in less than a minute. And I've put that stream to use in previous power outages, just because I didn't want to, just for the toilet, basically. I didn't want to use my drinking water to flush the toilet. And also I went into conservation mode as well. I learned, I'm a little too much in conservation mode when it comes to flushing the toilet, I have to admit. Probably TMI for a lot of you folks out there, but when I was living in Arizona, we had an expression. If it's brown, flush it down, but if it's yellow, let it mellow, because that's an area where water is a scarcer resource, and there's constantly drought. In fact, I don't think there hasn't been a year without a drought in Arizona for like 10 years now. And it was like that. I lived there in the 90s, and I wasn't in the desert. I wasn't in the southern part of the state. I was up what they call the High Plains Desert, up on the Mogollon Plateau with the mountains and pine trees and everything, the woodlands and all that. Absolutely awesomely beautiful. I love that's what I think of as home. When I think of home, I think of Flagstaff, Arizona. And I lived there for several years, and I couldn't imagine myself living anywhere else. But, as John Lennon said, life is what happens to you when you're busy making other plans. But really miss it, but it was dry. And oftentimes the forest was closed, and sometimes I had to live in the forest clandestinely when it was closed. But so basically I'm saying I'm used to water conservation. Long way around, but I hope it was entertaining along the way. So I have that whole routine, avoid flushing the toilet as much as possible, but still, when it's brown, you got to flush it down. And so I would have to go down to the stream with a 5-gallon bucket so I could pour it into the tank and, flush the toilet. Aren't you glad you heard that story? But the point I'm getting at, and yes, there is a point. There's always a point. and I usually get to it, is that with the storm approaching, I started thinking about, well, it's very likely that we'll lose power. But, there was no wind. There was nothing kicking up. But I thought, well, I haven't rotated my water storage lately. And for the reason that, water is not really that much of a concern. If I didn't have that stream, well, if you go down the road a ways, go down the mountain, there's a runoff pond down there, catches all the runoff from the mountain, and it's not crystal clear, but it's not brackish. It's not it's not mucky. It's pretty clean. You'll need to filter it and boil it, but that's another source of water right there. And if that weren't enough, there was another pond even further down the mountain. So my water situation, I think I'm covered. I usually don't worry about it too much. But I thought, well, it's the same old thing. It's like I don't want to. Here I go with Now I'm hyper conscious of saying and I'll drift in and out. But I just started thinking anyway. I ought to recycle my water, dump out all the containers. It's been more than 6 months. I put bleach in it and everything, but that's only good for 6 months. And started dumping out all the water, cleaning out the bottles, sanitizing the bottles, filling them back up again. And I filled up a few extra bottles. Just because, I do have a stream nearby, but, why, and this is an important point, why do people think they always have to do things the hard way? Just because how to do, oh my God, I'm super conscious of just because you know how to do things in a more primitive way doesn't mean you have to always do it that way. Knowing that stuff is what you use when the more convenient method is unavailable to you. And there's no shame in using the most convenient, the easiest method. You don't always have to do things the hard way. It's like, who's the guest? I think when I had Chris Nierges on the show, we were talking about starting fire with, starting a friction fire and using a bow drill and all that. And I know how to do it, but I don't pack a bow and drill in my bug out bag. I pack lighters and matches. You want to use those things first. Then if the lighters and matches don't work out, then I got ferro rods and I got fire steels and those type of flint and steel. Numerous ways. I got batteries and frickin' steel wool, for crying out sakes, in my bug out bag. Numerous ways of making fire. Does that mean I'm always going to go for the hardest method? No, of course not. That's not what it's all about. It's not about. It's about knowing these things. I got a P38 on my key ring. That doesn't mean I open all my cans of tuna with it. It's on my key ring to use when I don't have a can opener. That's what you don't always have to do things the hard way. If I have to say it more than 3 times, don't make me say it more than 3 times. You don't always have to do things the hard way. Maybe that's the 4th time I'm going to say it, and that's it. So that's the point I'm trying to make. And I went through all my water, and I felt pretty good about myself. And I had about 2.5 weeks of water storage, and I was set. If I lost the old electricity, other than that, I'm fine. I have food. I've always got food. I've always got everything else that I need. So when people come up to me and say, "Are you ready for the big storm? Did you get all geared up?" I'm like, I'm always geared up. Just get out of my face. I'm a real people person. I'm a people pleaser. Yeah, get out of my face. But seriously, these are people I know. These aren't strangers. Of course, why would strangers do that? Why would strangers run up to me? They don't know what I do. They don't know that I'm Ed the survival guy. I don't even tell people that. I don't even tell people just because of OPSEC. I don't tell people hey, I got a show. You ought to listen to my show and check out my website. I don't tell that to people when I meet them. I don't promote my show. I don't tell people what I do. I usually wait until somebody asks me what do you do? And I tell them, I don't tell them, right, I don't give them all the information. I say, I do a radio show. Oh, really? What kind of show? That kind of thing. There's another thing, talking about human nature, is that we all seem to have a great desire to know what other people do for a living. I don't have that. That doesn't happen to me. First of all, I hate making small talk. I would rather remain silent and be thought a fool than talk about the weather. Although all right, you got me. I talked about the weather for the first half of the show and the first half hour of the show. But you know what I'm talking about. The guy was like, hey, hot enough for you? Hey, how about that weather we're having? Oh, my God, is that the best you can come up with? If you can't come up with a better topic of conversation, and granted, you don't know me. Granted, I'm a stranger. You don't know what I'm into. You don't know what to start off with. And apparently some people are kind of intimidated by the way I look, because I look like a bearded, burly, crazy wild man from the mountain. My picture up on Facebook, that's my clean cut picture. That's me clean cut. Otherwise, it's like, what you want, Grizzly Adams? So if you can't talk about something more interesting than talking about the weather, then just don't talk about anything at all, or be friendly. Say hi. Hello, how are you? I'm fine. But the other thing is that people invariably ask, so what do you do for a living? I don't care what other people do for a living. I do not gauge a person's worth or value by what their job is. Whether you're a janitor or you're a rocket scientist. I don't care if you work at MIT or if you work at a pizza place down the street. Absolutely. Well, I wouldn't say it's absolutely no interest. People ask that question for a particular reason, and that's to identify commonality, to determine if they might have something in common with that person. Even if you don't do the same job or you're not in the same field, it gives you something to talk about while you size each other up. And it's not even as blunt as that, really. It's just that's what people do. And I don't do that. I never ask people what they do for a living. If you're a stockbroker, I don't care. I really don't. I'm more interested in what your interests are than what you do for your slave job. And I don't mean to offend anybody by saying slave job. I think some people might, when I try to refrain from using the term, actually, but it comes out in conversation sometimes when I go off on a rant about the Federal Reserve and our whole phony fiat currency and how we're enslaved and how we're on a treadmill and everything like that. That comes out, and I refer to anybody who well, you see, that started coming out wrong. Here's something that's an interesting little piece of personal information about Ed, is that I have a tendency to put my foot in my mouth sometimes. I have a tendency for things to come out sounding not the way that I intended them to. So I sometimes have to be careful when I talk about this stuff. And, if you get a job and you go in and you punch in a time clock, and you're putting in 8 hours a day and 40 hours a week, and you get a week off for vacation if you're lucky, I refer to that as a slave job, because you're working to make your boss rich, and you're sacrificing way more of your life, and you probably hate it. Most people, I hated all of my jobs. There's a difference between a job and a career. There's a difference between a job and a vocation. I've hated all of my jobs, except for the one job that I had in Flagstaff, Arizona. I worked at a T-shirt shop. I was a screen printer. I printed T-shirts, And it was the coolest job ever. Now, I've worked at other screen printing shops, but this particular place was like my home. These people were not just my coworkers; they were my friends. We were like a family, and it was owned by a couple of aging hippies, and the cool kind though. And I'll get into that some other time. Another story for another time. But by and large, I've hated all of my other jobs, and so I am blessed to be able to do what I do, and have been for the last few years, been able to do what I do. Do what I want to do, and for the most part, and it's not all, like I said at the beginning of the show, it's not all fun and games. I'm a busy guy. I work a lot. From the time I get up until the time I go to bed, and I have to do everything. But that's cool. When you have that is not work. When you have that, when it's something that you're doing for your own benefit, and it's something that you believe in, and it's something that you're passionate about, doing the work is not work. It's living the way humans are supposed to be living. But I'll have to cut that short right now, because once again, I've babbled my way to another commercial break, and give our sponsors some love. They could use your patronage, and I'd sure appreciate it. They keep the show going. So, without any further delay, we'll be right back.
Charlie McGrath here with an important message from Chris, Phil, Russ, Tyler, and the folks at PrepareWise.com. Do not wait until it's too late to be prepared for a disaster. The world's a crazy place. We have the ever-present threat of man-made political and economic crisis, making it important to be prepared. But when you factor in natural disasters, it goes from important to mandatory. A 7.7 earthquake in Canada, a 6.5 earthquake in Central America, and over 50 million Americans affected by Hurricane Sandy. It's time to make Legacy Premium freeze-dried storable food part of your preparedness plan. Legacy Premium tastes great, has a 25-year shelf life, and is the only certified non-GMO freeze-dried storable food in the business. I really recommend the 360-serving package. That's 120 days worth of life-sustaining calories for about $1.25 per serving. Give the guys over at PrepareWise a call at 888-545-6265. Again, 888-545-6265. Or better yet, visit them online at PrepareWise.com.
Silver has been in use as an effective antimicrobial for thousands of years, and this old technology is still in use today. In 2001, a patent was approved for a new medical silver application, nanocatalytic silver hydrosols. Unlike conventional colloidal silver products, some of the advantages of nano silver include up to 300% greater bioavailability, proven non-toxicity in over 25 university and FDA-approved laboratory studies, and extreme stability with a shelf life of over 10 years. Guarantee. With just one product, you can replace all the antibiotics, wound and burn dressings, and water purification products in your medical bug-out bag. These products have been patented for use against some of the deadliest pathogens known, many that are resistant to traditional antibiotics, yet are safe and gentle enough for treating a baby's diaper rash. To learn more about this medical silver breakthrough and see the published scientific studies, visit www.lifesilver.com. All orders ship within 24 hours with deep discounts and free shipping for case orders. That's www.lifesilver.com.
No one knows what the future holds, whether an unexpected natural disaster or a catastrophe of a more personal nature. You never know when you're going to need to call upon your survival skills and supplies. In order to be fully prepared, we at Dan's Depot believe you need two things in order to get through these uncertain times without fear: proven gear and top-notch survival training. DansDepot.com is not just another storefront selling survival gear. Our staff has been studying, practicing, and teaching survival skills for over 4 decades. We use and abuse all the gear we sell. So, when we recommend survival products, you can be assured that it's the highest quality gear available at the best price. But having the best gear means nothing if you don't know how to use it. That's why we have on-site video instructions to help you choose survival products for any situation. Each week, we produce new training videos and articles that inform, challenge, and better prepare you in all areas of survival, first aid, and self-reliance. Come visit us at dansdepot.com and let our team of survival experts help you get prepared with the knowledge and equipment you need to face these uncertain times with confidence. That's DANSDEPOT.com.
Okay, and we're back here at Survival and Beyond, and I am your host, Ed Corcoran. And we're just discussing the topical issues of the day, some survival information, and we're going to get to some deeper stuff even still. Yes, that's right, folks. You've got me for the entire 2 hours of the show, and that was partially by design, partially, partially was a matter of happenstance, just a change in scheduling and with, interviews and guests and whatnot. And I've been getting a lot of feedback from you guys, from my listeners, the listeners of Survival and Beyond, letting me know that you actually like hearing what I have to say. So we're going to go on our second hour of Survival and Beyond, and I've got a lot of things to talk about. I've got a lot of things to say. I've got so many things to say that I can't even keep track of where I'm going. Where I'm going. Everything is just all tied together and interconnected, and one thing leads to another, and it's really easy to just go off on a tangent. But it's all important. It's important for people to know this stuff, just like Shelley said. In her email, which I actually meandered off the point of that, is she came right out and said it, man. It's like there's a lot of folks out there that are aware, and they just need to be motivated. Get off your butts. Well, you know what, folks, get off your butts, because this is your final warning, and I don't mean because of 2012. Most of my listeners, that. I don't buy into that whole fantasy about the Mayan calendar and everything. The Mayan calendar doesn't say squat about the end of the world. Even the Mayans. You go down to speaking of Chris Nierges, he went down to the Yucatan Peninsula where Mayans still live, and they are like, nobody told us that that's what the calendar means. So they're not taking it seriously, but there are a whole lot of other things that if it's not the end of the world, it could be the end of the world as we know it. And I dug up that article that I was talking about earlier in regards to the HAARP array, and actually apparently there's a HAARP array here in New England, right here where I live, right in my own backyard. And this article came from the Intel Hub, and apparently they've registered a burst from the HAARP array. That's the highest output ever recorded. And so far, that it goes off a scale. There's a color scale which indicates intensity, and in the graphic that they have on the website, you can check this out at the Intel Hub. Engineered Storm HAARP Monitoring Project is the Engineered Storm HAARP Monitoring Project records strongest readings ever directed in path of Hurricane Sandy. And I'll read you some of the article. An independent website that has a real-time sensor network from over 28 sensors placed in rural areas across the United States has recorded the strongest HAARP readings in the project's history. The readings in and around the New England area are literally off the charts and lend credence to other claims that Hurricane Sandy is possibly being engineered to cause massive destruction. Well, there was destruction. I wouldn't say it was massive, and there was a lot of hype as we were talking about. But anyway, reading on, in a Facebook post, the HAARP monitoring website posted this startling description above the photo of the readings. Strongest readings in the history of the project have peaked. A never-before-seen white shade indicates the value of higher than 10 on the 1 to 10 scale has been indicated. It has no color assigned. HAARP status has finally come to a bullseye over what looks like Rhode Island and Connecticut. Currently, projections at NOAA say Hurricane Sandy will hit New Jersey. Our status numbers disagree. The storm is being steered toward the higher concentration numbers. Well, it turned out they were wrong about that. It did hit New Jersey. Truly remarkable numbers is one to archive because this may never be seen again in a very long time. A post on the on the weatherspace.com also reported on the readings from HAARP status and confirmed that these readings have until now been unheard of. Well, the fact still remains. I won't read on the rest of the article. You can read the rest for yourself if you're interested. The fact still remains that they have detected this enormous amount of activity from a HAARP array, and I'm going to have to look into this a little bit further because, like I said, I was not aware that there was a HAARP array on the East Coast, especially not here in New England. So that's something to be concerned about, and there are other HAARP arrays in the world. And I would have to guess that weather control is not an exact science. So just because apparently this website disagreed that that they were trying to make the hurricane hit New Jersey, which is actually what did happen. And so apparently where the HAARP array actually is doesn't really matter, because from what I've read about it, from what I understand about it, they can bounce the signals, they can bounce the microwaves, or they're not microwaves. I think it's a low frequency actually that it emits, but they can bounce the frequencies off the atmosphere, and so that they can cause changes in the weather or affect the weather in various parts of the world. And since they have several of them now, this thing is really starting to come to the fore. Back when I was covering this topic a lot, I've had people on the show, one of which is a former CIA operative, or I don't know exactly if he was an agent or whatnot. And some will say there's no such thing as former CIA. But I've had guests from that background on my show, and they were, this one person in particular was more concerned about the scalar technology, which I can't go into any detail about what the scalar weapons are capable of. I mean, they're capable of being used as weapons and used in conjunction with each other to create havoc among the biological population. So, having that been said, something to look out for, something to be mindful of, the HAARP array, weather modification, especially with the C-election approaching, that still on the fence about what I think is going to happen. Could be no election. That's a power that Barry has provided for himself, the ability to suspend the elections if he deems fit. Could be no election, could be a false flag event, could be an election in which Obama does not win, and which his supporters have been vocal about creating, kicking up a whole lot of fuss, a lot of civil unrest. If that's the case, it's a pretty close race if you believe the numbers that the mainstream media is feeding you, but you know enough not to believe that. Interesting to see how it goes. That's about all the comment I have about it at this moment, because I wanted to bring up something else, another interesting piece of information. The International Monetary Fund. They've done a research paper. They published a research paper about, hey, guess what? What if we didn't let the banks create our money? This is a article that is on survivalandbeyond.net, as well as the other articles that I've referenced in this broadcast. You can find the information on survivalandbeyond.net and read more about it, as well as enjoy our survival videos and download all the survival guides. We got tons of survival guides up there, survival preparedness, self-reliance, all that good stuff, all free for the download. There are some places out there that'll charge you money for survival guides. It's an electronic format. It's PDF. It's an e-book, as they call it, and And for those of you, I know I sometimes get comments from folks like, what am I going to do with this where there's no electricity? Well, you download them, you print them out, put them in a binder, protect them, read it, study it, live it, love it, swim it, sleep it, learn it, do it. That's what you got to do. Don't put it on a shelf and let it collect dust and think, well, I'll just thumb through these pages and when disaster strikes and I'm under stress and I can't think straight, that's not the time to be learning survival skills. That's not the time to be figuring out how to deal with the situation that has been dropped in your lap. Time to get ready for that stuff is now. Get off your butt. Get off your butt, you preppers out there who are dragging your feet. Get up there and do it. Ain't nothing to it but to do it. And you know it sounds daunting, and it's really not. You know, people think, oh, my God, where am I going to get all this food? And I'm really behind. I'm falling too far behind. It's never too late. It's never too late to start getting prepped, and it doesn't take too much. It can be done painlessly. It can be done in increments. And that's, you keep waiting, and that's human nature. You know, when something looks daunting, when something is a formidable task ahead of them, people would rather do nothing than do a little. And I'm a human being. I'm just as guilty of it myself. You know, if it seems too big a task, then instead of chipping away at it little by little, most people would just do nothing. You cannot do that. You cannot afford yourself that luxury of saying, I'll do it next week. Because you don't know what's going to happen next week. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You don't know what's going to happen in an hour. You just have to do it. And trying to refrain from uttering a lot of corny, cliched aphorisms and whatnot. But get off your butt. I'm going to take Shelley's suggestion to heart and just try to get you folks motivated. Do it. Anyway, the International Monetary Fund, in an article titled, "What if we adopted a system where the banks did not create our money?" Oh, well, there's a clever idea. Well, why didn't somebody think of that before, huh? Geez, I'm pretty sure I thought of that before. But it's not likely to get done. And the International Monetary Fund is, I'm not really trusting them too much either, because they're all tied in together. The IMF, the World Bank. The World Bank is basically owned by the United States. The Federal Reserve. All these, the Rothschild family holdings, the banks, the Crown, the City of London. The Bank of London, rather, all that stuff is all kind of tied in together. But the IMF is, and I'll read a little bit of it here, because for those of you folks who may not be hip, who may not be aware of the fact that our currency is indeed a fiction, it is a mutually agreed upon hallucination. It is absolutely valueless. Your money is valueless, but we've been stuffed into this box, into this game, into this trap, into these chains of having to constantly chase something that has absolutely no value, squandering all of our personal time, our talents, our resources, having no time for ourselves, our family, spending the rest of the time watching television, entertaining ourselves, all for the sake of a dollar that doesn't exist. A dollar that we think exists, and we've imbued it purely through our. Now this is the power of the mind. Actually, no, this is a good example about how your brain believes everything that it sees, even if it's making it up itself. This is a concept that really needs to be stressed. It really needs to be stressed because this gives you a better understanding of how it is that television controls you, controls us, controls the populace, the sheeple. Saying us is fair. It is fair because it does, it has the same effect on me as it has on everybody else. I choose not to watch television because I'm aware of these effects. I'm not as subject to them. I do occasionally watch television, the news. I mean, you know, like if I have no other choice, you know, sometimes I'm exposed to television, and I can see all of the triggers and I can see all of the anchors. And I studied neurolinguistic programming years ago, and I'm not in a position. I'm not qualified to lecture about it and all of its, you know, the specifics and, you know, and the science of it and the psychology of it and all that. By no means do I say that as an expert, but it's a course that I took a while back, and a lot of it, you know, I remember a lot of it. I don't really use it because it can be used to manipulate people. It can also be used for therapeutic purposes as well. The class that I took was attended by a lot of people in the sales field, people whose jobs it is to manipulate you into buying what they're trying to sell you. For, you know, just to put it bluntly, that's really what sales is, you know, they're trying to, I wouldn't say brainwash, but, you know, they're trying to persuade you. And NLP is used a lot in not just advertising. I mean, it's not just the advertising I see this in. I see it in the actual shows, the programming. That there is a reason why they call it programming, folks. It's because they're programming you. And also with the flicker rate, I've talked about this before. I won't go, you know, too much into it. But it is an instrument that's used for mind control. And I don't mean mind control in some weirdo tinfoil hat wearing, you know, bunker squatting survivalist guy. That's not the perspective I'm coming from. It's not the angle I'm coming from here. But it is a mind control device. It does influence you. It does put you in a suggestible state and you know, plants notions in your head. And it's true. I mean, and it is done in advertising. You know, there is subliminal content that you're being exposed to. And this is what I love about the cynics, about the skeptics. And don't even get me started about the skeptics too, because that's a whole other show. But the skeptics who say, well, you know, subliminal programming was debunked years ago, and you know it's proven not to work, and so that can't be true. When I say that there's subliminal content and there's subliminal influence in television, what I say is like, yeah, well, if it's been debunked and it doesn't work, you know, that can't be true because they're still using it. They use subliminal images and they put subliminal information in magazine ads still. You know, if it didn't work, then why would they be doing that? That's you know, it takes time to do that stuff and to put the mask the images and the phrases and words and all that. So, you know, it is being used. You know, it's being used to at least influence your thinking. Wow. Yeah, this is all the scattershot stuff. This is all scattershot stuff that I think about on a daily basis, making notes, making mental notes. Oh, I can remember to mention that on the show. I can remember to mention this on the show. Not that I've never mentioned the whole television thing, but I guess what I'm trying to do is I'm backpedaling because I went off on a tangent and trying to gracefully make it look like a segue instead of a non sequitur. But what if we adopted a system where banks do not create our money? How about that? What if there was a financial system that would eliminate the need for the federal government to go into debt, that would eliminate the need for the Federal Reserve, that would end the practice of fractional reserve banking, and that would dethrone the big banks? Would you be in favor of such a system? Of course I would. That's a stupid question. A surprising new IMF research paper entitled The Chicago Plan Revisited by Jaromir Benz, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, and Michael Kumhoff is making waves in the economic circles all over the globe. The paper suggests that the world would be much better off if we adopted a system where now you see this is where I get leery when they say the world. The world would be much better off if we adopted a system where the banks did not create our money. So much better off if we So instead of the system, I'm trying to read this around my microphone stand, by the way. So much better off if we adopted a system where the banks did not create our money. So instead of a system where more money is only created when more debt is created, we would have a system of debt-free money that is created directly in by national governments. There have been others that have suggested such a system before, but to have an IMF research paper actually recommend that such a system be adopted is a very big deal. At the moment, the world is experiencing the biggest debt crisis in human history, and this proposal is being described as a radical solution that could potentially remedy some of the largest financial problems. Unfortunately, apologists for the current system are already viciously attacking this new IMF paper, and of course the big banks would throw a major fit if such a system was ever to be seriously contemplated. The banks wouldn't just throw a major fit, folks. The banks would not allow this to happen. There is no way the banks would allow this to happen. Have the IMF or even if the UN wouldn't deal with this unless it was across the board, unless it was every country using the same currency and all that. But even still, the article does make a good point, though, in this last sentence in the paragraph that is, I think, something to take to heart. That is why it is imperative that we educate people about how money really works. Our current system is in the process of collapsing, and we desperately need a transition to a new one. Well, we need a transition to a currency system that is in control of Congress, as is stipulated in the Constitution, that is backed by gold or silver or something tangible, not just a figment, not just an illusion. Something is tangible. $1 in gold is $1 in gold, and this is redeemable on demand. Its value in gold. That's real currency. That's the way it's going to work. I don't care about the rest of the world. I don't care if the European Union, what's the likelihood of that happening? The European Union was designed to be the next step into global governments, the next step into our absolute slavery. The European Union they set their system up the way they wanted it to. They're not going to change that. But in the United States, here in this country, that's really all I care about. And yes, I know the economies of the rest of the world are, that has a huge impact on our economic situation. And I'm not ignorant to that. But, when I hear about, the IMF suggesting that all the world's governments ought to do this, not just the United States. They do hold up the United States as an example for the reasons why they should be compelled to have real currency. One of the fundamental, and continue reading this a little bit, one of the fundamental problems with our current financial system is that it's based on debt. Just take a look at the United States. This is exactly what I was talking about, using the United States as an example. The way our system works today, the vast majority of all money is created either when we borrow money or the government borrows money. Therefore, the creation of more money creates more debt. Under such a system, it should not be surprising that the total amount of debt in the United States is more than 30 times larger than it was just 40 years ago. Yeah, well, it's surprising. It's a travesty is what it is. So getting back to, if you're not really sure about the way our money system works and the way what the Federal Reserve is doing and how banks create money out of thin air, that's exactly what they do. It's just numbers in a computer database. Very little of our actual currency is in circulation in paper form. It's all just numbers on a screen. And every time that you deposit money, because of fractional reserve banking systems, every time you deposit money, they only need to keep 10% of the principal. And they can take the rest of that money and they can replicate that figure 9 times. They can just out of thin air. So they can take that money and loan it to, they make loans charging interest. The interest isn't there because only the principal is created by the Federal Reserve. They don't print extra money to cover the interest. And so therefore, every dollar is an instrument of debt. If every single debt were paid, then there would be no money. It would all be gone. There would be none of it in circulation. That's how money is an instrument of debt. And I won't go any further into this. I won't go into a long dissertation. I mean, there's obviously more details about the whole system. But a good way, if you would like to figure it out, and it takes a little bit of figuring out. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, I used to wonder about it. I used to wonder, like, why does this have value? Why does this piece of paper have value? And nobody could ever answer that question. Adults, even school teachers. And, well, hey, I went to public school, so what do you expect? But nobody could really satisfactorily explain. And then most of the time I would get told that, well, you see, there's the gold in Fort Knox, and most people believe that the money was still a representation of something tangible. It was still backed by gold or backed by silver or something. And this is how we forget that. This is an example of how monumental things, or even not monumental things, but things that are just well known, things that are not even hidden, become forgotten. People forget about it, and things like the Patriot Act or NDAA. People hear about it on the news, and then it's not in the news anymore, and so people just completely forget about it. It just slips out of their consciousness. But, just like people knew when Daniel Ellsberg released the Pentagon Papers that the Vietnam War was started on a false flag event. It was started because of a false flag event. It was started because of something that Robert McNamara, the Secretary of Defense, openly admitted to, that the Tonkin Bay incident never occurred. And that we were in Vietnam for a lot of industrial reasons, and then there's all other, again, without going into all the details and everything. People knew that. I mean, it was in the newspapers. It was controversial. It was in the New York Times and various other newspapers across the country, and Daniel Ellsberg was running for his life because he was, being pursued. He was concerned that, as well he should be, that the powers that be were coming after him, and they were, and that's why he had to publish parts of the Pentagon Papers in various different newspapers. But people know this stuff, and it's full and well public knowledge, and people just forget about it. So now we have this money, and nobody really knows. Most people are blissfully unaware of fractional reserve banking, and that the Federal Reserve is a privately owned bank, and it controls our country, our currency, through our currency and that we're basically being robbed. We're whenever there's inflation, some other body is in control of, and they call it inflation as if it's some kind of organic, natural thing that, like the weather, that nobody really has any control over. So it is controlled. It's devaluation, and they don't call it devaluation, which is what it really is, but, so, yeah, this is kind of encouraging, I guess, this article, which you can read about. I don't know if I really want to read the whole thing verbatim, but some of the quotes about what would happen as a result, of actually transforming, and that's what it would be. It would be a wholesale transformation of our currency system, which I can't see happening. But some of the projections are that private debt would be cut by 100% of GDP. It would boost growth, stabilize prices, dethrone bankers at the same time. It could be done cleanly and painlessly by legislative command far more quickly than anybody imagined. Okay. This is what Kennedy was killed over. All right? So saying that this could be, this transformation could take place just effortlessly. It will be delightful. You'd be delighted how quickly we can do this. I don't think so. The conjuring trick is to replace our system of private bank-created money, roughly 97% of the money supply, with state-created money. We return to the historical norm before Charles II placed control of the money supply in private hands with the English Free Coinage Act of 1666. Specifically, it means an assault on fractional reserve banking. If lenders are forced to put up 100% reserve backing for deposits, they lose the exorbitant privilege of creating money out of thin air. Yes, and it also put numerous banks out of business. Don't forget, they're too big to fail. There's a reason why that this hasn't happened. You know, if this could happen, the banks would have never got bailed out. The whole concept of too big to fail is going, oh no, this is going to hurt our banking system too much, because now they're not going to be able to make billions and billions of dollars out of nothing. They're going, if you put $1,000 in your bank account, they have to keep $1,000 there. They can't say, okay, we're going to create another $1,000 out of this and lend it to Joe, you know. And then when he deposits that money in his bank account, then we'll make $1,000 out of that. And every time, it's just a vicious cycle. You know, every time money's deposited, every time money's lent, they're just creating it, and it's just numbers, folks. So why don't we go to such a system immediately? Well, the transition to such a system would undoubtedly be a major shock to the global financial system, and most people try to avoid significant short-term pain, even if there are tremendous long-term benefits. More importantly, however, is that the bankers have a tremendous amount of power in our society today, and they would move heaven and earth to keep a debt-free monetary system from ever being implemented. You see, the influence of the bankers is not just limited to the big banks. Our largest financial institutions and people who own them also have large ownership stakes in the vast majority of the big Fortune 500 corporations. In essence, the big banks are at the very pinnacle of the establishment in the United States and in almost every other major country in the Western world. Yes, the Rothschilds are everywhere. There are very few countries now that do not have a Rothschild-owned bank. And, hey, Iran is one of them. And at one time, Iraq was one of them, and Afghanistan, well, they got Rothschild's banks there now. And there's very, very few parts of the world. This is like the British Empire. The sun never sets on the Rothschild family. It never sets on their empire. And it is an empire. That is the true controller of the world. Anyway, the vast majority of all political campaigns are funded by the establishment, and it takes an enormous amount of money to win campaigns these days. And yeah, and most politicians are extremely hesitant to bite the hands of those that feed them. So don't expect any change to happen overnight. One proposal that has actually been put forward in Congress is to cancel all the government debt that the Federal Reserve is currently holding. You see, and this is why they run the country. They own the country because we owe them. The government owes the Federal Reserve so much money. They don't just give that money to the government. Say, oh yeah, here, put this in circulation. No, that's a loan. That's a loan. And also the Federal Reserve, oddly enough, I mentioned this on a previous show, it was discovered when they conducted the first ever audit of the Federal Reserve that $16 trillion the Federal Reserve gave away to foreign countries. Gave it away. They called it a loan, but there's no interest, and there's no requirement to pay the money back. So that's not a loan, man. That's a gift. They gifted this money to a lot of foreign banks and a lot of foreign countries, and we're never going to see that money back. But hey, guess what? It's all fiction. It's all an illusion. It's all a dream. It's just something to keep you on the treadmill, something to keep you going from day to day, making a nice making a nice slave of yourself. But, hey, guess what? We got to take another commercial break. But it'll be very brief, and we'll be right back.
Silver has been in use as an effective antimicrobial for thousands of years, and this old technology is still in use today. In 2001, a patent was approved for a new medical silver application, nanocatalytic silver hydrosols. Unlike conventional colloidal silver products, some of the advantages of nano silver include up to 300% greater bioavailability, proven non-toxicity in over 25 university and FDA-approved laboratory studies, and extreme stability with a shelf life of over 10 years, guarantee. With just one product, you can replace all the antibiotics, wound and burn dressings, and water purification products in your medical bug-out bag. These products have been patented for use against some of the deadliest pathogens known, many that are resistant to traditional antibiotics, yet are safe and gentle enough for treating a baby's diaper rash. To learn more about this medical silver breakthrough and see the published scientific studies, visit www.lifesilver.com. All orders ship within 24 hours with deep discounts and free shipping for case orders. That's www.lifesilver.com.
Charlie McGrath here with an important message from Chris, Phil, Russ, Tyler, and the folks at preparewise.com. Do not wait until it's too late to be prepared for a disaster. The world's a crazy place. We have the ever-present threat of man-made political and economic crisis, making it important to be prepared. But when you factor in natural disasters, it goes from important to mandatory. A 7.7 earthquake in Canada, a 6.5 earthquake in Central America, and over 50 million Americans affected by Hurricane Sandy. It's time to make Legacy Premium freeze-dried storable food part of your preparedness plan. Legacy Premium tastes great, has a 25-year shelf life, and is the only certified non-GMO freeze-dried storable food in the business. I really recommend the 360-serving package. That's 120 days worth of life-sustaining calories for about $1.25 per serving. Give the guys over at PrepareWise a call at 888-545-6265. Again, 888-545-6265. Or better yet, visit them online at preparewise.com.
Survival is not about the end of the world. It's not about a hypothetical plane crash or the latest violent storm. Survival is about the satisfaction of knowing you can take care of yourself and your family in any situation, anytime, anywhere. CampingSurvival.com was started in 1956. No, not the .com part, the survival part. CampingSurvival.com has over 17,000 urban, wilderness, and preparedness items. Supreme customer service, very low shipping, and no games. We look around to make sure we have the lowest prices. And CampingSurvival.com is 100% USMC veteran-owned. Don't base your survival on the latest spring up on the internet company. Do business with an authority on survival. CampingSurvival.com. Confidence born on preparation.
Okay, and we're back. And don't forget, you can get 5% off all of your purchases at CampingSurvival.com by entering the coupon code SBRadio. Just enter the coupon code, get your 5% off, get geared up, get off your butt. We don't have a whole lot of time left. And holy Hannah, talk about not having a whole lot of time left. I really let the time slip away from me. And this is a really important segment of the show. This is the part of the show that I always have the hardest time with because I really have to keep an eye on my time, make sure I don't run over. And this is a really important thing. In the last few shows, I've been speaking a lot about the nature of reality and about manifesting and about controlling your own reality, creating your own reality, trying to get the truth out there, trying to empower people and get folks to realize. And there's one thing that I want you all to do. And before I go into this, one thing that is everybody who's listening to me, one thing that is your duty, that is your responsibility, is to spread the truth whenever possible to whomever possible. Now, I don't mean run up on people, come rolling up and start, hollering about the oligarchy and about the Federal Reserve and about how we're all controlled and how we're all slaved and hit people over the head with a frying pan. You're not going to get anywhere like that. What you need to do is you just start planting seeds. Just start putting a little kernel of truth, a little kernel of knowledge. And never, ever pass up an opportunity to do that. And you know what I found? I found that the average person, more and more, in my interactions with just ordinary people, more and more, I'm finding that people are getting hip and people are waking up. And even if they're not fully awake, you know, when I talk about our government, our elections are an illusion, and our money is a super illusion, an uber illusion, and people are like, yeah, they don't need any convincing. They don't, you know, whereas in the past, you know, I would have to start citing references and start, you know, connecting all the dots for them and everything. And I've been finding almost universally that people are a lot more receptive to this. People are starting to realize that, you know, the wool is starting to be lifted from their eyes. So whether it's a truth about the government, whether it's a truth about the globalists and the system and the New World Order, or whether it's about just the pure reality of nature and the reality of what we are and what we are capable of doing, all of that truth needs to go out, and especially the latter part of it. I mean, it's great, to tell people, hey, you got to store up on food and you got to get prepped and you got to do all these things, you know. But if you can get people to change the way they perceive the world, to instigate a paradigm shift in their thinking, that makes it a whole lot easier. But anyway, that is the first and foremost. That is always the charge that everybody should be doing, because, you know, we don't have much time left, and we need to wake up as many people as possible. And so never miss an opportunity to wake people up. Never miss an opportunity to plant the seed or give them something to think about, even if it's just that. Even if it's like, hey, you know, you don't have to take my word for it, but it's something to think about. You know, something to keep, because once you plant that seed, then they're going to keep their eyes open for it. And when they see it, they're going to recognize it, and they're going to know it. And then they're going to start putting two and two together, and they're going to start figuring things out on their own. And they're going to start doing their own research, and they're go out and start looking for this stuff. So this is what we all need to do. Just change people's thinking. Make them aware that the world they live in, this mutually agreed upon hallucination, this hologram, is just that, and that we have the power to change it. And you don't need to prove it to anybody. It's already been proven. It is there. It's irrefutable. It's empirical. You can prove it, and I want you to prove it to yourself. And I'm going to give you a assignment, so to speak. And it's not going to be anything daunting. You know, don't worry about it. It's not going to take a whole lot of your time. It's not going to be like, I'm not going to tell you to, you know, get a year's worth of food storage together. What this is, now, first of all, I should preface this by saying that you've heard me speaking about solfeggio frequencies and reactivating the pineal gland, and that's something that is very important. It's very, very important, especially if you suffer fluoride damage, if you've been drinking fluoridated water for any period of time. You really need to do that. You need to decalcify skatefish oil, and there's all kinds of other things that you can find out on the website on survivalandbeyond.net. So I don't have much time left. I'm not going to go over it all right now. But also the solfeggio frequencies, they're very effective. It's very palpable. And you can go on YouTube and find these things. And don't worry, when I say solfeggio frequencies, I don't mean you're going to be listening to a drone, like a constant, high-pitched frequency or something like that. I mean, it's musical. It's musical, and binaural beats. Binaural beats in particular, I found have had a profound effect on stimulating my pineal gland. There's no denying. You will literally feel it. So that's something that you can do. I listen to solfeggio frequencies in the background. You can go. There's a lot of great people on YouTube who've made like 15-minute long cuts of the solfeggio frequency music, and you can loop it. You can download it, loop it, and there are sites that sell recordings of it, sell MP3s and whatnot. You can do that, but you can go on YouTube and just type in the search field solfeggio frequencies, and you'll come up with a lot of stuff. I put it on the background. I listen to it while I'm working because I can't listen to music that has lyrics or singing in it while I'm working because it's distracting, because a lot of my work is writing and reading and research and things like that, and I just can't listen. The lyrics will be too distracting to actually read and write and do what I need to do. So I put on the solfeggio frequencies, and it really, and it's mood altering. I mean, if you wake up and you're in a bad mood, or say it's in the middle of the day and you find yourself in a bad mood, or you're feeling out of sync or something like that, it's great to put that on. And it really, I was surprised at how profound the effect was. So that's a good thing to get started, to kind of sync up your brain waves and kind of shake off the stimuli and the conditioning and the programming that you receive on a daily basis. And not just through television. I know I rant and rail against television a lot, because I think it's really important that you limit your exposure to television. Not going to go on that rant again, but this will straighten you out, son. This really will. And my assignment, okay, we're talking about manifestation. I want you to prove to yourself that you can manifest something into your reality. And how this is done, when you wake up in the morning, before you get up, and also I know this is probably impractical for a lot of people because a lot of us live by alarm clocks, but if you can at all possible, wake up without an alarm clock. That'll do you a world of good as well, because it's totally unnatural to be shocked out of sleep. And especially, it has to do with the way our sleep patterns, the way our brains, it goes through a cycle when you're sleeping. Every 45 minutes, you go from alpha brainwave patterns down into theta, down into delta, and then back up again. And theta is where you have REM, rapid eye movement. Delta is just dead, dreamless sleep. It's like 2 brainwave cycles per second, or it's like 0 to 4 brainwave cycles per second. That's where you have your dark void. And if you're shocked out of sleep while you're in delta, your brain is being forced to come up through, come from 1 brainwave cycle or 2 brainwave cycles per second up to 14 brainwave cycles per second all at once, and that's just a shock to your brain. So when you wake up in the morning, hopefully without an alarm clock, just lay in bed with your eyes closed, take a deep breath, be conscious of your breathing, oxygenate, and visualize a quarter. Just visualize a quarter. You can imagine it in your hand or just in your possession. And just keep that image. And just focus on an image. You don't have to try too hard. Some people, visualization comes easier than others. Just, some people, they can do it easily. Other people, they have a harder time with it. But just keep that image in your head. And this is the thing, what I always get hung up on when I try to describe what it's like to manifest something, or to visualize something manifesting into my reality. Like I said on a previous show, when I first started, I used to think you had to really concentrate, and no, the more you do that, the more you try to force it, the more elusive it becomes. It's almost like dreaming. You almost have to do it without actually thinking about doing it, if that makes any sense. The reason why I say it's like dreaming is, like, for example, when you go to bed and you're just drifting off into that little twilight realm where you're just somewhere halfway between consciousness and unconsciousness, and you start dreaming a little. You do have dreams. You don't just have dreams in theta or in deep delta. You have dreams in light alpha or deep alpha as well. And you don't have to think about that. You're no longer conjuring images in your head deliberately. They're just coming to you. And that is kind of the state that you need to be in order to manifest. And the other thing that is required is that you don't have to believe it. You don't have to believe it. You just have to be certain of it. Belief is, depending on your definition, belief is one thing and faith is another. You need to have faith that this quarter is going to manifest in your life at some point. And don't think about how it's going to come to you. Don't think about where it's going to come from. But just know this. Just know it. That's the other element of it, is when you're trying to manifest something, you don't believe that you're going to get it. You don't hope you're going to get it. You don't, cross your fingers and, and throw salt over your shoulder or whatever, or do anything. It's not a superstition. It is not a superstition. You just know it. And you proceed with your day as if it's already happened and it's already coming. It's done. It's there. It's part of your reality. And so you don't have to convince yourself of it. It's just like, I'm going to find a quarter somewhere today. And it'll be interesting to find out how many of you actually did this exercise and took it seriously and actually had a quarter manifest in the course of that day. Now, the other thing, too, about manifestation is being mindful. Mindfulness is something that I personally have problems with myself from time to time, because I do so many things, my head's going in so many different directions, and it's really hard to get that inner quiet and to be conscious of what I'm doing and conscious of what I'm thinking and conscious of the kind of elements that I'm trying to bring into my life. So you have to be mindful of it without obsessing over it, without thinking too hard. Everything this should really, and I'm sorry if this is like really a bad explanation of the kind of mindset that you have to be in or how to do it. I'm not sure if it's really making any sense, because it only makes sense to me. I don't have to analyze it or dissect it or think it to death in my head. It's just something I know. Eventually, a belief becomes a faith. Something that you believe becomes something that you know. And you have to know it, But the reason why I use a quarter, this is a technique that I learned years ago. I'm talking like 20-odd years back, when I first started realizing that I could bring things into my reality, and that I could manifest things. But I was still, doubtful. I'm just like everybody else, It's like you like to believe that, but you also are more prone to believe in coincidence, And like I said, like I've said in the past, I don't believe in numerous coincidences, because that's just too coincidental. And so, but you still have that. You still have that tendency, because you've been told all of your life that things like this don't happen. You have this tendency to pass it off, to shrug it off, or whatever. But what I want you to do, and throughout the day, if you're at work or if you're on your break or something like that, you're on your lunch break, just keep that image of the quarter in your head throughout the day, and don't get discouraged if it doesn't happen right away. So I want you all to try that, and just try it. Just try it and see what happens. You don't have anything to lose. And I would like to hear from everybody who does try this in earnest and it actually manifests for them. If you do it and it works, I want to hear about it. So there's your assignment for the week, learning to manifest quarters. And I'll be talking about this more as time goes on. I'm not going to devote the entire show to it, but this is something that I will cover, because I think it is important for you at first. If you've never done this, at first, when you realize that this can happen, that this is actually something that you can do, it will be inspiring to you, and it will be something that will make you want to go further into it and learn more about it. So we'll just start off with that little exercise, and we'll see how it goes. And we're going to have to sign off. I'm back into using the royal we again. I'm going to have to sign off for now. We're all out of time. And as usual, keep your head up. Keep on living free. Don't take any crap from anybody. You are a powerful creature, but you got to get off your butt. So until next week, I'll talk to you then. Have a great week, everybody, and keep on living free.